Mary is considered the greatest asset of Danish monarchy. How did a girl from Australia become a Queen of Denmark? Today I will introduce you to the person who captivated not only then heir to the throne, Frederik, but also nearly 6 million Danes. Hi, my name is Anna and welcome to On Royals. If you haven't yet, please ensure to subscribe my channel to get more videos about royals from all around Europe. Today I will introduce you to Mary. Mary, who could potentially write a workbook how to become a princess. She is loved by Danes and has more than 85% of support. Millions of people around the world followed her 24-year journey from an ordinary girl from Southern Australia to the Queen of Denmark, and in this episode I will trace her journey. Mary Elizabeth Donaldson was born February 5th, 1972 in Hobart on the island of Tasmania in Australia. Interestingly, she was born less than a month after her future mother-in-law became Queen Margrethe II of Denmark. Mary comes from a large family. She was the fourth child of John and Henrietta. They were both Scottish, though after their wedding in the 60s, they moved from Scotland, from around Edinburgh, to Tasmania in Australia. John was a professor of mathematics and Henrietta worked in administration at the university. In a TV program prepared before her marriage, Mary talks about her life in Australia, presenting her large family and recounting her childhood. She describes her childhood as good and happy. She emphasized strong relationships with her siblings and father. She also had a special bond with her grandmother and recalls being very talkative at school. Occasionally, she was silenced by teachers during lessons. Mary was always loving sports. She loved sports and horses. Horses became the biggest passion of Mary from her very early childhood up until today. She's known for her love for horses, and even her kids in a documentary prepared, or like little series of interviews prepared for Mary's 50th birthday, mentioned that horses are absolutely her thing. Mary received her education in Tasmania. She went there to primary school and middle school and all the schools possibly you can imagine, and afterwards she went to University of Tasmania, economics, business, commerce and law. Afterwards, she took some courses in advertising. After studies, Mary moved to Melbourne, where she started her career in advertising. The year 1997 marked a significant turning point in Mary's life. After an unsuccessful heart operation, her mother, Henrietta, unexpectedly passed away. Mary describes it as an incredibly challenging moment. Although she quickly returned to work, after the initial shock, she realized that her mother's death had completely changed her perspective on the world. 6 months after her mother's death, Mary quit her job in Melbourne and decided to travel around the world. And this led her to Scotland, where she also took a position in advertising agency for 3 months, but she realized that she missed her very close family very much, and she has to come back to Australia. She ended up living in Sydney. She herself described this place as an amazing city, and Sydney actually felt a bit like traveling for her. She could explore the city. She could live in a place she haven't lived before. She moved in with her friends to a house in Paddington district. And it was in Sydney in 2000, during the Olympic Games, that the paths of the girl from Tasmania and the future King of Denmark crossed. The story of their relationship deserves a separate video, and I will probably do one about it. So I will just explain their love story in very, very short. They met in a bar, slip-in, where they were brought by friends, and they were partying together as a group. Instantly, Mary and Frederik connected and they chatted all night long. After that short meetings in Sydney, they continue long-distance relationship for some time. For over a year, they managed to keep their relationship away from the press. Mary still lived and worked in Sydney, and Frederik visited her from time to time. Danish press found out in November 2001. As Mary recalls, her life changed in that moment, and she was no longer a private person, but she was rather constantly followed by a crowd of people. Shortly after, Mary resigned from her job in Sydney and moved to Paris to escape the press and be closer to Frederik. She worked there as an English tutor. However, a few months later, in the fall of 2002, Mary moved to Copenhagen, taking a job at Microsoft. Mary recalls that when she moved to Copenhagen, her goal was to discover if she could find herself in Denmark and if she could see herself in Denmark and in Copenhagen. She needed to be sure whether the relationship with Frederik is strong enough and if she really wants to stay in Copenhagen. She had to be absolutely sure before taking the next steps. For example, a step of meeting Frederik's parents, Queen Margrethe II and Prince Henrik. Mary recalls that when she thought about meeting them for the first time, she was quite nervous and she was stressed if they gonna like her. The meeting itself was kind of spontaneous. One day Frederik said, "Oh, my mother is coming for tea today," and apparently that was it. Luckily, it all went quite fine. Right after moving to Denmark, Mary started learning Danish. Danish is not an easy language, especially the pronunciation is kind of tricky, but she put a lot of effort, and she recalls that the first words in Danish that she learned was actually counting from 10 to 1 and saying Happy New Year. She had 2 teachers and she took not only classes in Danish language as such, but also in Danish culture. By January 2003, everyone knew that Mary and Frederik is a big deal because Frederik kissed someone first time in public, so it was actually a big deal. And by summer 2003, Queen Margrethe, during a press conference in her French castle, mentioned that she met Mary, she admired Mary, she really likes Mary, and she thinks that Mary will make a great daughter-in-law. In September 2003, it was announced that Queen Margrethe will give permission for the wedding at the next Council of State, October 8th. October 8th was actually the official engagement of the couple. They went to the balcony and waved, but also had a press conference. And during the press conference, Mary tried to speak Danish. She started in Danish, saying that she asks everyone to speak slowly, and she may or may not reply in Danish. She will also reply to questions in English. Even though her Danish was not that advanced at the time, she really showed that she put a lot of effort into preparing for this role. It wasn't only the Danish language, but everyone could see that she has that something, that she is regal enough, she's royal enough, and she's just the perfect fit for a future princess and later Queen of Denmark. Before wedding, Mary renounced her Australian and British citizenships and became citizen of Denmark. Wedding took place in Copenhagen, 14th of May 2004, and gathered many guests from around the world. After the wedding, she immediately engaged in work, and one of the causes she supported the most was Danish fashion. Even she got a nickname, a fashion princess, which significantly narrowed her work and had somewhat pejorative connotation. Though Mary continued to try to find her areas of activity and define her role in royal family. A year and a half after the wedding, Mary gave birth to the first of couple's 4 children, Prince Christian. Mary, coming from a large and lively family, knew that she wants to have a big and happy family. The couple chose not to live in the palace in the center of Copenhagen, Amalienborg, but rather a more remote location, Fredensborg. In 2007, their second daughter Isabella was born, and she was followed by twins Vincent and Josephine in 2011. Mary and Frederik's parenting was more akin to an average family in Denmark than royal household, and they really opted for simple solutions, Danish solutions, like for example transporting their children in a cargo bag. More mature chapter of Mary's work as a royal family member started in 2007. She established her own foundation, Mary Foundation, and started to support causes that she's very interested until today. Children, first of all, well-being of children in all shapes and forms. She also ran anti-bullying campaigns, and women, especially subjects around maternity, are very close to her heart. She also engages in initiatives related to women who have experienced violence, and expands her initiatives beyond Denmark. She also was involved in a few projects in Africa. Her work extended even more internationally, because she's not only the patron of an international health organization, but she's also working in United Nations task force. In 2019, Mary became a member of Danish Council of State and gained the right to act as regent, assuming the role of head of state in case the monarch is out of the country, ill, or unable to perform duties. Mary is often compared to the British Princess Catherine. Both ladies are not of aristocratic origin, but at different stages of their lives they came into contact with the royal family. Their stories are not identical, although they are similar. One thing that connects them is their conscious motherhood and support for initiatives related to children. However, what stands out immediately is fashion. Both women are regularly praised for their amazing sense of fashion and classic elegance. Mary was named one of the best dressed people in the world by Vanity Fair and gave interviews to various fashion magazines, including Vogue. Though her impeccable outfits are also a promotion of Danish designers. There has often been a question of whether Mary is more Australian or Danish, and she actually answered this question herself. She said that she found home in Denmark, that she adopted Danish values, and she received a warm welcome from the nation. She chose Denmark and Copenhagen to be her home, although she always remained herself. And her personality was actually shaped in Australia. Mary was the Crown Princess of Denmark for almost 20 years and became Queen Mary, January 14, 2024. For over 2 decades, Danes watched Mary perform her role and watched how she became more and more Danish and more closer to their nation. Many voices credit her for securing the future of Danish monarchy because she elevated what some considered a less regal husband to a more dignified status. 86% of Danes believe that Mary will be a good queen. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel to get more royal stories. See you. Bye bye.